Hello there. Welcome back there, children. This is Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. I've been seeing a bunch of different things recently that have caught my attention. The most recent of which being the Super Bowl, and 50, among others, during the halftime show was out there. And people recently have been kind of making fun of him a little bit because he appeared a little more thick, etc. Now, on one hand, I think that when you're a famous person, like hating and the haters, that it is just going to be a part of it. Like, I don't think it's practical to get rid of that element. It is what it is. Like, it's going to happen to a certain extent. And one of my favorite sayings is, lions do not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. So there's that. But a lot of people were also then up in arms in response to the people that were kind of shaming 50 Cent a little bit or poking fun at his weight. And they were making the equivalence. And they were saying that, oh, this just goes to show you that men's mental health isn't really taken seriously. And then you wonder why the SUI rate is so high for men. And people wonder about that too. But like, here's the thing, and all those people who defended 50, I think their heart's in the right place. Like, they want to do well. But ultimately, I don't know how much it helps when they say things like that, because ultimately there will always be bullies. And I was bullied in the past before. And what I really needed, and if I have a son one day, which I hope I do, what he would really need is to be empowered, not to hope and pray that the bullies all go away and that people will always treat us well. To me, that's not realistic. And this is why I wanted to get into the radical self respect way and bullying. So, if someone's being bullied, to me, the radical self respect way is you empower that person or you empower yourself to do something different. Maybe it means taking martial arts, learning jiu-jitsu, learning Muay Thai, learning how to defend yourself physically. Maybe it means developing a stronger mindset. Maybe it means really internalizing the lions do not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep mantra. To me, all of those things are empowering things to do. And Jordan Peterson would always talk about this too, because they'll say snakes will always come into the garden. You can't prevent all the snakes from coming into the garden. But what you can do is empower that person to handle himself in those situations. And in this particular situation, 50, he is more than capable of handling himself. Multi-millionaire, been in power, was a rapper. You don't need to worry about 50. I think he can handle himself. In 50, he's been one to bully others himself. So kind of sometimes what goes around comes around. And most recently, he did kind of bully Madonna a little bit for being 63 years old and acting like a virgin, as he said verbatim. And he had to apologize for that. So, what sometimes what goes around comes around. And I'm never going to say bullying's okay. That's not the point here. But the way to handle it, that's the point of emphasis for me. Don't coddle them. Like, we're not going to be able to prepare the road for the child. You prepare the child for the road. To me, that is such more of a pragmatic thing to do, because it's just not realistic to get rid of all of the bullies. In the perfect world, they would all be gone, but that's just not realistic. What is realistic is empowering people to not give a hoot about it. So if someone were to bully me today, I do not care one bit. So when I put myself in the public's eye here, yeah, you're going to get some hate sometimes. You're going to get people talking all sorts of shit about you, but you just can't let it bother you. And honestly, if I do let it bother me, it's kind of on me. And so if someone, say, for example, is heavy and they're seeing all these comments about their weight, I would ask that person two things. I'd say, well, do you think you have an issue with your weight? Like, it was up to you. Would you want to do better with your weight? Because if the answer is yes, then that person needs to hold themselves accountable and to do better, because it's ultimately what they want. Now, if they don't think they have a problem with their weight, then I say, okay, you don't need to worry one bit about what that other person says about you, because we shouldn't care. It's kind of synonymous with being gaslighting proof. I made a video previously about being gaslighting proof, and As we all know, cluster Bs, narcissists, they all like to gaslight. But the thing about being gaslighting proof is if someone really is able to gaslight us, it means we didn't have a strong enough grasp of our own realities. It means that to an extent, we cared a little bit about that, what that person thought of us, and we gave that person a little power over us. And I make the same equation here with the bullying. We don't need to be giving people power over us. And when bullies bother us, that's kind of what we've done a little bit. And I know some people would say, oh, well, you're victim blaming. It's never their fault. I'm not saying it's their fault. But what I want to see happen is I want them to see them through it. I want to practically and pragmatically see them through to the other side, empower them. And sometimes pragmatically, what will help them is not always what people will just say about it. It's not always just a 100% acceptance. It's like, I want to see you get through. I want to see you do better. And sometimes the do-gooders and the people that try to stand up for others, it doesn't really help the person being bullied. Like, it's really just kind of like a virtue signaling to a point. Oh, I'm caring about men's mental health. I'm caring about the SUI rate out there. But talking like that, does it really help the bullied person at all? I don't really think so. I don't think it really helps them very much. And so I'm only concerned with what's going to help that person, what's going to empower them to have a stronger mindset, what's going to empower them to live the mantra, lions do not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. And maybe it means making changes in their own lives if they really want to, and to not worry about what other people are saying. Now, of course, with kids, this is going to be the hardest, right? Because if I have a son and they're under 10 years old, for example, it's going to be normal for them to be bothered by what their peer groups say. But then my philosophy would be, yeah, you know what? I want to do things for you and help you to develop that internal fortitude. Take some martial arts, develop your mindset. And honestly, if someone doesn't stop bullying, I'd have no problems telling my son to punch someone in the face if they were to do that. And if anyone were to ever say to me, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't tell your son that, I would say, screw you. Because sometimes, especially when there's children, when it's kids, that is the only thing that gets someone's attention. And if that's wrong, I do not care one bit. And I'll refer people to Andrew Tate's story about bullying. And I think this is a classic example. I'm going to end on this because this is more of a quick rant episode here. I got a few more episodes coming up that are going to be shorter, but kind of quick to the punch. But Andrew Tate, he was telling a story about when he was a kid. There was bullies on his bus. Now, for those of you who don't know, Andrew Tate, 4-time kickboxing champion now, but he was getting bullied on the bus. And he would come home to his father, and his father was a chess grandmaster, really smart dude. And he'd say, Dad, I'm getting bullied on the bus. And his dad would say to him, well, you have a lunchbox, don't you? And he didn't do anything about it at first, Andrew, and he kept on getting bullied, and he kept on going to his dad, but his dad didn't do anything. His dad was a really smart and wise dude. He wanted to empower his son to handle it. Do something about it. Handle it yourself. Learn how to do it. And by doing this, he gave him a very valuable gift. The gift of being self-sufficient and learning how to handle his own problems. So his dad said again, you have a lunchbox, don't you? So the next time on the bus when Andrew was getting bullied, they were bullying him and he had his lunchbox and he smashed him in the face with his lunchbox. And the bullies run off the bus as soon as they can. And Andrew comes back and he shows his dad just the handle of the lunchbox that's left. And his dad said, okay, let's go to Walmart. It looks like you need a new lunchbox. And then he said to his son, anytime you need a new lunchbox, we'll get you one. And what he did in this process was beautiful. It was he empowered his son to handle his problems because the calm sea never made a skilled sailor. So, yeah, it was certainly uncomfortable for him. It certainly didn't make his son feel good, but he empowered him to handle it, to do better. And that's the kind of pragmatic, practical suggestions that I think are the most helpful. It's not just all the people advocating about mental health and advocating about the SUI rate, etc. And of course, those things are important, but to me, there's a difference between what's pragmatically going to be helpful and what just sounds good. Sometimes something that sounds good isn't always going to be pragmatically helpful. But Andrew's dad, he gave him a valuable gift. It was a valuable lesson. And in the course of learning that lesson, he became more empowered. He began to believe in himself a little bit more. Okay, I do have a little more power over my circumstances than I thought I did. And I can handle myself. And then he grew up to be the 4-time kickboxing champion. To me, that's a success story. Now, a lot of people might not think that's a success story. They'll think, oh, that's just using violence. It's like, well, when you're a kid, sometimes you got to do stuff like that, honestly. And I think that's good. I think it helps people to do that. And I think practically it was a useful thing to do. So that's what I want to focus on here. I don't like the bullies. There will always be bullies. And I'm not saying anyone should be bullying, but I just recognize they're always going to be there to a certain extent. The use to me, the radical self-respect way to me, is to empower the people being bullied. It's to give them the strength, the ability to overcome, the ability to handle the snakes that come into the garden, have them chop their heads off. Because you can't protect them from everything. You can't stop all the snakes from coming in. You prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child. And that's where I would like the emphasis for this to be. And I've seen a lot of people that have been bullied in the past, and there's been a lot of people that have overcome it. There's been a lot of people that really soared to high heights in the process of overcoming it too. Now, granted, I'm never going to say to a person who's being bullied, who's actually being bothered by it, I'm never going to tell them they're an idiot. I'm not going to tell them and invalidate their experience. You give them a little acceptance, but then you give them the empowerment. That's, to me, where all of the practical use is. Give them the empowerment. That's what will help them. Being better. How you doing there, being better? My siblings bully me for my weight and for not going out, even after I've mostly recovered. There you are. My siblings bully me for my weight and for not going out, even though I've mostly recovered. But you know what I'd say to you, miss? You can't let that bother you either. Screw what they say. So yeah, screw what they say. And if you believe you have an issue with your weight yourself, I would say you do your best to improve upon that. And then just always remember the lions don't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep thing. And also, here's another thing. Bullies often, they'll try to pull down someone that they think is better than them. They'll try to, because they're jealous, ultimately. People who are jealous, they try to pull people down. It's the crabs in the bucket mentality. You don't let them pull you down. Most often, not always, but most often, the criticisms, the bullies, they're coming from below because they think you've got something they don't. And so they want to see you equally miserable as them. And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody when those bullies are doing that. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, their families are always the ones being the bullies. I mean, as we've talked about on this channel a lot, the narcissists, they're always picking. They're picking at people, trying to pull them down, trying to make them feel bad about themselves. And it doesn't help. But that's why I emphasize the being the gaslighting proof, having solid boundaries, and ultimately cutting people off that are always going to be a drag on our energy. It doesn't do any good to be around those negative forces. Or at the bare minimum, we got to be least amount of contact necessary. But that's pretty much all I had for this episode here. Coming up, I'm going to give you a little rundown of some of the other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about hypergamy and how hypergamy loves narcissism. That's one thing I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about perhaps another article that I disagreed with completely. It was 3 reasons why you shouldn't block a narcissist. I didn't like that one bit. And then there was a current events where Kyle from Secular Talk, it appears like he's going out with Crystal Ball from Breaking Points. And Crystal Ball was married up until very recently, if she's not still already. But I wanted to break that case down because it's a valuable thing for men to see how that went down. I might wait for some more details to come out, but I think it's important. It's important to kind of see what happens in those kinds of scenarios and why it's important for guys to have boundaries. But That's all I had. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.